Oh, thank you. Okay, it's 6 o'clock, so I'll call this meeting of the select board to order. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and the republic
and which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adjustments to the agenda. I think we would like to do the tax commitment earlier in the agenda than we have it, so we'll move that up to just before. We'll move it up to old business just before the discussion of demolition costs. And I also would like to briefly talk about the E911 crisis, so I'll do that before we jump into the tax commitment. Does anybody else on the board have adjustments?
Could I add the library for under donation and also to the discussion about phones?
I have an adjustment about phones. Gus can't make it tonight, so we're gonna reschedule that for the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
When it's rescheduled to the library, be in on that. I think we're in pretty much the same boat as we are here.
You've got an additional donation for the library. I see one for Butler Center. Is that different from what you here?
We're not seeing
It might, may not show up on here, but you show it up on ours.
Okay.
$500.
Yes.
Okay. Last chance for adjustments. Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything about the straight consent to bring quite a few of us here for that?
I couldn't hear a word she said.
The consent agreement, 23 schools, there are quite a few of us here for that.
Okay,
We want to move it up.
All we're gonna do is talk about the process. And we are not making any decisions on it.
Right.
The process right now, and I can go ahead and complete that item right now. The process is the CEO and the lawyer have drafted a consent agreement for the Elliots to review. If they have any discussion about it, they go back to the CEO and the lawyer. It's not in the select board's hands, and we are not going to entertain any discussion. I would have one question. Right now, the potential for the fine is over $75,000. And the lawyer has recommended to decrease that to 10,000. Do you have in your mind a fine that is closer to what you would like?
I guess, my name is Lee.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. My question is, given that we sought all permits that we expected, and thought we were following directions.
Then you need to either get a lawyer or get to our lawyer and the CEO and discuss it with them. That's who you have to convince. You don't have to convince us of anything.
I would like to ask a question now. My question is, when I asked the lawyer, how were we supposed to know that the coding officer wasn't someone we could ask for advice from and given that was her job, she said, you should have had a lawyer and looked at the, first of all, she said you should read the coding yourself, which we didn't understand. And she said, you should ask for a lawyer. So my question is, does anybody, when they go and make a request for a permit from the coding officer, have to bring a lawyer to review it with them? If that's the case, which is what she was suggesting, is that the way it is in the town? And does everybody know that?
The code enforcement officer is not a lawyer and cannot give legal advice. And if you have questions about the land use ordinance or shoreline zoning ordinance, then you should engage a lawyer. I can tell you that if you engage a general contractor or a design engineer to design a property, they are familiar with it and can reach back to their lawyers who understand what the documents say. I don't want to get any further into this. You got any other questions about it? Talk to the CEO and the lawyer.
So you don't want to discuss anything with us?
No,
Yeah, I don't understand why it's on the agenda.
it was to describe the process so that everybody understands the process.
But it seems as though it turned into,
I know. Yeah, but
okay,
it is to describe the process of consent agreements. Consent agreements are made by the CEO and the lawyer with property owners in lieu of going to court.
So is this a common type of fine, $10,000?
It's very low. It would normally be $75,000 to $100,000.
How often has that been?
Not very often. But that's neither here nor there.
But it is.
Okay, I don't want to discuss it any further. This portion of the meeting is now done. Right? If you have any other questions, talk to the lawyer or the CEO.
can I just ask a question? My understanding is that the Elliots have been given that advice already from you, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about
Maybe that is a donation to the library or to the ambulance.
discuss that with the attorney. Because I don't know whether she can allow that, whether that can be allowed. I'm not a lawyer either. So I'm not going to give you lawyerly advice. Okay, next topic is E911 crisis. So if any of you have not heard about the E911 crisis, yes, ma'am.
It's not her.
You haven't.
I have.
Okay.
I hadn't either until I read the paper.
Right. So I am on the county's budget committee representing the town of South Thomaston, Owl's Head, and Vinyl Head. And our quarterly meeting was last Thursday. And during that meeting, usually there's hardly anybody there except for the budget and the commissioners and Andrew Hart and occasionally the treasurer. The room was full, packed with first responders, firefighters, EMS, law enforcement, including the chief of police for Thomaston and the sheriff. Filled with people. As it turns out, and what we were told as a budget committee that night was, in the very near future, our dispatch center will not have enough dispatchers to dispatch. They have to have 2 at a time, 24/7, to be able to take 911 calls and dispatch emergencies. They won't have enough to do, they're going to be down to 3 dispatchers. So they're not even going to be able to do,
3 people for all shifts.
say,
It's just 3.
no, 3 people total.
That's what I meant, yeah.
Right, 3 people.
Got it.
But 24/7.
Got it.
24/7. So I had assumed that this had just cropped up. And the county commissioners were going to take some action to try to mitigate the issue. But they had no clue what it was gonna be. They talked about increasing pay. They had actually put in, the budget committee had approved an 18% increase in their pay for this year, January through December of this year. The union had voted it down. So they have not gotten that 18% increase for this whole year. So they're talking about increasing their pay, doing stipends, getting Waldo County, their dispatch center, to do our E911 dispatching. And then slowly building back up and doing just the local dispatching from here. A local dispatcher does not need the requirement that an E911 dispatcher does. They don't need all the training and they don't have to have 2 people deep. So right now they're looking for firefighters and police officers and EMS personnel to come in and augment the dispatchers to keep the dispatching portion of it alive while Waldo County does the E911. The reason I wanted to make sure the public was aware of it is because in all likelihood, and this is just my guess on it, there may be delays, especially if it's a non-emergency that you're asking for somebody to respond to. Non-critical, life-threatening emergency. But even that, Waldo's going to take the call. They're going to take information from the caller. They're going to pass it electronically to Knox County if we have people in there that can do it, and then they will dispatch Knox County first responders. So you can anticipate additional questions, callbacks, and possibly, and I can tell you they're downplaying this part of it, but possibly delays in responses. The reason they brought this up at the budget committee, I think, was to prepare us for next year's budget, because in November we start working on Knox County's budget for next year. So I think they're telling us so that we can be prepared to see an increase in training, hours, wages, just about everything that goes to recruiting and retaining employees, which they're not doing. And just as an aside, this isn't a crisis, but almost all of the law enforcement positions in the county are having the same kind of issues. And part of that is because Thomaston came up with a new unique way of bringing their people in and giving them days off and paying them more money, and Rockland countered with theirs. And so all of the pays kept going up. Knox County was locked into what they had voted on last December. And so they're losing people too. But that's happening all over the nation, and especially around here. Yes.
I don't know if this is a question or a statement, but my understanding is this has been known for quite some time now. And I feel quite blindsided. I didn't know a thing about it. Nobody from Knox County told us, none of our emergency people brought it up to us. I believe they were aware of that. I had 2 or 3 people ask me what's going on, and I had to say quite sheepishly, all I know is what I read in the paper. And I just feel like we gotta improve communication. I mean, it felt like it was the best kept secret in Knox County. Now, I'm sure if you were in the first responder world, it wasn't, but if you were outside of that, you know, it wasn't in the paper. There was no communication from the county administrator. Obviously you didn't know about it even as a budget rep. And it just, I don't know, it just feels like people gotta communicate better. And I understand, maybe I'm wrong, but I've been told that this crisis has been building and they've been working on it now for quite some time.
Yeah, and I think Amy, are you still on? Amy has been part of a working group that has been looking at it since June on a monthly basis.
Yeah, so is it okay if I just say a few things? We have been a user groups meet like once every 3 months. since June, we were working on with Waldo. So if something happened, because we were down to 6 or 7 people, having a backup, like, hey, if something happens and we lose extra people, or we had someone retiring and then a couple more people came on. So it was at that mid-level of, we want a backup plan, and that's what we were working on. Other than that, it was more of, we're trying to recruit, they were trying to get more people. And then a week and a half ago, we were called into an executive session of 2 people gave their notice, another person retired, and now you're in crisis. So yes, I was part of the, hey, let's get a backup plan in case something happens, which was great. But the crisis thing was more of the last 2 weeks. Bang, here we go. We lost 3 people in the last whatever. So at least I guess I feel at least we're in the process of having a backup plan, maybe there. But it's now like crisis zone of, we've got to figure it out in the next 10 days is kind of what we got. So I don't feel this, and then bang, it happened. It wasn't meant to be a secret at all.
Thank you. And Amy's been helping me put word out to the 3 towns I represent for the budget committee. And right now, I do know that they're doing daily updates on what they're doing and what they're trying to accomplish. I think right now the confusion is that now that the horses are out of the barn, this is the way Gordon Page described it, we've got a whole bunch of cowboys trying to chase the horses. And so I get a letter from one chief, a fire chief, one police chief, and from Andy Hart, and they're close, but not exactly always the same. So the reality is, it's probably not as bad as I feel it is, but it's probably not as good as some of the folks that are putting out, don't worry, we're fixing it, kinds of letters.
So I think you're right, Jeff. I think it's critical, and I think everybody should know. But I think that John is right, and we need to communicate better and all be on the same page. And that's, I think, the hardest thing right now is not everybody is on the same page, and everybody's trying to fix it in different directions. So I am trying to keep you guys updated every time I get an update. There's another meeting on Wednesday. This is my vacation, but I'm making all the meetings so that I can keep everybody updated. But as soon as I get the updates, I will send them out. So I am not shutting my phone off as usual, but I am going to try to take a couple days at the end of the week when it hopefully settled down and all the meetings have. But if I can't be at a meeting, David's going to be there, or Ryan, and everybody will get the updates. But I think that the biggest thing is communication and making sure that everybody gets the information in a timely manner.
Thank you.
I just want to say, I'm definitely getting the updates now. I went from getting nothing to so much I can't read it. Keep up with it. So it's coming from everywhere.
And just so you know, one of the things they are working on right
I
now.
wanted to say one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I apologize. I wasn't implying that you guys are trying to keep a secret. It just seemed to me that there was no public knowledge of it, and the paper hadn't talked about it, and I don't believe it was reported by the county to any of the elected officials until it became a crisis. But I do feel a little better that the depiction that I got was that this has been a crisis for a while now, but it sounds like that's not the case. It really kind of hit ahead 2 or 3 weeks ago. So that makes me feel a little.
Yeah, I mean, it was just at that level of we're maintaining, and that's why when we started working on it in June was like, if it doesn't maintain, what we got to have a backup. Kind of like that was our big talk in June. And that's why we started meeting with at least Waldo to say, like, if this happens, how is it going to work? If we lose another person, what's going to happen if we don't hire anymore, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, I mean, hopefully that we can get it fixed quick, which I am hoping quick is the next year.
Yeah, and I think in the short term, right now, they're looking for people with dispatching experience, prior dispatching experience, or first responders who can volunteer time, not volunteer, they get paid a stipend. I don't think they've settled on the amount, but they'll get paid stipend to sit in dispatch and get the local dispatch portion. That's where we are right now. It's probably, even in the best case, if they got people to volunteer and then they got people hired and trained up, probably the best case is that they'll be back up as an E911 center 6 months from now. It's probably more likely a year. Yes, sir.
So we're gonna get a discount on our bill?
Yeah, good question. I think what you'll say is an increase next year.
No, yeah.
No, I'm not talking about next year, I'm talking about this year.
Yeah.
We still have to pay Waldo to do 911 if that's what we're doing or wherever we're going.
Yeah, because I hear they have made an offer. I haven't seen what it is or how much it is, but Waldo has come back with here's a contract for us to do it.
Well, I had to ask a question.
Yeah. Okay, anything on that topic? All right, we'll move on to the tax commitment. So that we can get that done and send out tax bills at a time like that. And thank you, Kevin, for running up a Zoom.
Hey, it's just worth it.
And for being here.
That's what we do. We like to keep you guys guessing.
Jeff, am I,
Many options as possible.
do you need me out to stay
No.
on for anything else? Okay,
We have the SOPs.
thank
Oh,
you.
the
Oh. Okay,
No, we can do that. If you're happy with it, we're happy with it.
I am. I actually am.
They have to be proofread, and I believe
Bill did.
Bill's proofing.
Bill did. Yeah.
Typos and stuff, so, but if everybody's good, we'll correct the typos and I'll get them to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have fun, Amy.
Just looking for the latest versions.
Jeff,
Yes,
can you ask Terry to share the worksheet on the Zoom screen?
well, right now we've got,
That's what you're gonna work from? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
yes,
jump.
we've got A through F.
Gee.
G, I'm sorry, A through G, so. So has everybody had a chance to look it over?
Well, I have, but I gotta start off by saying I hate doing this way.
Yeah.
I felt really stressed out in the last couple of hours. I was looking at this, I just happened to see two omissions. I called Terry and I talked about this morning, actually. And I just, I really, in future years, I'd like to get the numbers ahead of time, have a chance to look at them. I don't even feel comfortable still. But having said that, I think that realistically, several of these we could, I know my other concern. I'm still very, very concerned, and I expressed it at budget time, that we way overestimated our revenue sharing in this budget. And I asked Terry how our revenue sharing payment in July compared to last year. Because remember, we're projecting, based on the state projection, 274,000 more than the 200,000 we had last year. And our July payment was within pennies of what it was last year. So now we got 11 months to make up 274,000. So I think, and I mentioned to Kevin too, and his comment was, I think you guys are being very overly aggressive or something like that. So put that aside. It seems to me, I know there's several of these here, but I think some of these we can just discard. I mean, I don't see us talking about $167,000 in overlay. We've never even approached that.
What my intention was with that is to give you they give you a minimum and a
Yeah, I
maximum
understand.
rate. So I wanted to show you what it could be. That's all.
Yeah. But I just think it just,
I knew you would.
instead of having A to C, we could have A to D, man. or A to
You
C.
could do that, absolutely.
And that would make my life easier, not having so much paper. But But I appreciate your effort on that.
While you are all deciding, there's just a couple things I'd like to mention and maybe bring to mind. So you all know that the mill rate that you choose has a direct reflection on your overlay. With implementing the new factor this year, just a reminder that all that stuff was hand inputted individually into each account. There's no magic button that you push to push that data into each of the accounts. So I'm hoping that there are no errors. If I was a betting man, I would say that naturally there's probably going to be a couple or maybe even a few. I hope that's not the case. But keeping that in mind, I might just recommend that you choose something that has not like a humongous amount more overlay than you're used to, but just maybe keeping that in mind, that's all. And the other thing I'd mention is, and we've talked about it in the past, and I won't rant on with it, but the town is really, really in need of a revaluation. What we've done this year, the factoring will get us through this year. Linda Lucas, a representative from the state, came by a few months back. And what she does for the state is she does their audit. It's an annual audit. And they do a sales ratio study during that audit. And she can already tell us that even after we've implemented the 15% increase, next year we're going to be behind it. It's just the way the market is. There's really, the town needs a revaluation. They don't last forever, you know. The reason I say that is being in this business, I know what it's like out there right now. And every town out there that I know of is screaming for a revaluation. They know that their values are low. Some of them are getting by doing what we've done here, a factoring. But it, again, like we talked about, it's just a Band-Aid. It doesn't fix your real problem. It'll get you by for a year or two. That's it. And with that in mind, revaluation companies are very, very busy right now. So from what I'm hearing, it's difficult to even get one within the next 3 years. So again, just putting it out there to kind of keep it in mind. I know that the last I knew anyway, budget wise, hadn't saved a heck of a lot towards what the inevitable cost is going to be. So just thought I'd mention it while you're making your decision.
Yeah, and I think we've had this discussion a little bit past. Right now, I don't see any internal discrepancies. I don't see waterfront property selling any more than landlocked property or even non-structured properties. Everything is out, and I think as long as everybody is equally screwed or skewed, maybe that's a better word.
Much better.
Then I think putting the Band-Aid on is doable. But at some point, we've got to find where the quality between different types of properties is making one group of them pay more in taxes than they should. And that's my trigger personally for a reeval.
Yep.
The last reeval was painful. And it took a lot of money, a lot of education,
Yep.
and a lot of work to get it done. And so I agree with you. I think eventually we're gonna need it. But I'm not quite as ready to head in that direction. I just assume raise everybody every year.
So here's what I see for a problem with that. It can certainly happen. But every year that we're still behind, we're gonna apply another factor onto a factored number.
Right.
And you're just creating more room for error every time you do that. And
I agree.
I would just say, you know, if that's the approach that we're gonna have, it's certainly doable. Certainly doable. But
But again, that's just one person's opinion. That's
right,
not
absolutely, no, and I get it, I understand. It's a lot of money to raise. I'm personally not looking to bid on it or anything, so I'm not pushing for it in that way, but yeah, so if that's what we're looking at doing, is just applying another factor on top of a factor for the coming year, perhaps.
Yeah, I'd like to see the numbers before we decide to do.
Yeah,
that.
sure.
Yeah.
But in the coming years, we're gonna have to continually apply more for overlay, because there will be errors. And then there will be errors that are magnified by another factor. It just gets messy.
Mara?
I have two questions. One, it used to be said that a reval was around 100,000. What is a reval in today's dollars?
Closer to 300.
300,000? Okay, because I see the reserve account 61,000 in there. We've been putting in 10,000 a year.
Yeah.
And then my other question, this new factor you just talked, is that the 15% increase?
Yeah.
And how did you come to that?
Based on what the state had us evaluated at versus what we had us valued at.
Well, didn't it get us to the point where everybody would qualify for a full
Right.
homestead exemption, a full veterans exemption, and a full? Because last year, not everybody qualified for their full.
Right, it was like 93%.
And the 15, I believe, is the number Kevin came up with that got us over that hump. So everybody would at least get a full homestead and veterans and whatever others. There's another, I can't think of it. but-
Yeah, and it didn't take us to back up to 100. We were lower than 80%. This time. So 15 got us to the point where we could certify at 100.
That's correct.
Great, thank you.
Yes, the 15 gets us actually to 91 is what it does.
Yeah,
But we're probably getting a little off track here. Maybe we should have this discussion another time, and I'm really glad Kevin brought it up, but if it's gonna take 3 years to just secure someone to do it, that's good in some ways, because maybe we can put some money aside for it. But it's bad in the sense that we're probably looking at a factor anyways for.
Exactly. That's
That's
why
why every 3 years, you're probably looking at least one more factor.
That's why I couldn't just sit here on my hands and, you know, and not,
Right.
you know. I feel like it's my obligation to at least explain to you what we're up against here and what we're looking at for the future.
Yeah.
So,
But I agree with you, Jeff. I think when our quality ratio gets out of whack, then that's unfair. That means that different classes of property are paying. You know, so anyway, we probably, I back to the mill rate discussion. I think that the factor segues into that, even though the mill rates that are on these sheets are 14.8 and 14.9, at least the two that I'm looking at.
those are the two I'm looking at.
Could I just
I think we need to
could I
remember
just
that.
Ask one more
That's
question.
up to the chair.
Yeah, let me finish this.
I think we need to remember that that's not really a decrease, because you're applying that to a factored valuation increase. So the way I look at it, the 1488 is actually a 3.7% increase.
It's actually,
Huh?
It's actually more than that.
Well, I just took $100,000 house and applied the mill rate of this year, and then I took $115,000 house, which is 15%, I believe, times 100,000, and then applied the mill rate to it, and those are the different taxes, so. But I think we need to remember that, because it may sound good. Oh, we decreased the mill rate, but in effect, everybody's valuation went up, so. Anyways, we need to remember that.
The other thing that would have played a bit of a part there, not a lot, but a bit, is the stabilization. You know, the folks that qualify for that.
Yeah, and they're gonna get really whacked next year. When it goes back to,
Right.
They will. But
but,
that would have played a bit of a part there.
yeah, but I'm not comfortable adding more surplus to reduce this. Because we've been so aggressive with the revenue sharing, and in effect, if we don't make the revenue sharing. Or even come close to it, that's gonna just deplete our surplus. I mean, if we're 150 short. By definition, our surplus is gonna go down 150, so.
Yeah, and again, I'm still not. I'm not comfortable with the surplus number that I'm wrestling, right? So,
You mean the current surplus?
yeah,
Yeah, actually, I'm more and more comfortable.
are you?
But,
The 6.9?
yeah, but that's another discussion, but.
But yeah, because of that and because the way I'm reading it right now, we're like right at 12%. So I mean, if we went below 12%, that'd only take $5,000 added to it. And we'd have to get to something like 95,000, we'd have to go below 10%. And I'm not comfortable doing that.
Remember Sonia had some.
I was just. Wondering if I'm understanding that you wouldn't need to do another factor. For this coming year, if last time you got to 90%, I mean. Would you still be within the range that is okay?
The 15% got us to 91% for this year,
Got
the
it.
one we're setting.
So,
So a year from now,
right,
we'll be faced with the same situation. And we don't know until they come out with the numbers. And because they chase, he cannot chase sales. But the state does. And so every year they take the previous 4 years minus the last year. And then they give us the calculation based on sales. So right now,
it might not be okay next year.
yeah, we have no clue.
The housing market collapse would be fine.
Yeah, the housing market collapse, will be fine. If people would quit selling their property for exorbitant prices, nobody's gonna do that.
Probably not.
So I think where we are is between 4.8 or 4.9 and
Well, that's where I'm personally at. 14.
14, right? And
What?
C, D, E.
Well, I take Kevin's point about the overlay. We've traditionally been somewhere 15,000, 20,000, 14,000,
But
yeah.
yeah,
So my inclination is to go with 14.9.
I can support that too.
I can too.
I'll move, we set the mill rate at 14.9 for fiscal year FY 20, whatever it is. 3.
I'll second that.
or 4.
Any further discussion? Did you have a question, Walter?
I have my hand up.
Yes.
Who are you calling on?
You.
Me? Wow. So you have a first past audit, which has the surplus in it. Is there some discussion, debate, disagreement about what that number is?
Well, not. I do my own calculations of how much it should be. And I come up I'm about 100,000 higher than what the audit says it is, but. There are some things we did this year with monies that we don't traditionally do. Set aside for things that we didn't spend this year, that we're gonna spend next year. We set them aside in a pocket. My calculations would show that as surplus. And so that may very well be the difference. I just didn't think it was that big a difference.
Yeah, I learned how to do that from you, Jeff, and I'm always wrong as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I have never been exactly on, but I've always been closer than I am this year.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So going back to John's negativity, I guess, about the state revenue. Doesn't twice a year or so, the state gives us a forecast of what that might be. Are they historically way off, or do they historically wink and nod and not tell us the truth? I mean, why the doubt?
In my mind, because it went from whatever, we budgeted 200,000 last year. I don't know what their projection was. I think it was 240 or something. And we usually budget less. Number one, we usually budget less than their prediction. We didn't this year. And number two, they never increased it by $274,000 in the course of 1 year. So
Yeah, it seems to me that they were perhaps overly exuberant, but the fact is that they've generated a huge surplus this year. So why do we think they won't come across with the money? And I don't mind being conservative. I don't mind,
just cautious. And why I realized that 1 out of 12 does not make a trend when the amount this July was pennies from what it was last July, that gives me pause for concern.
Okay, well.
And there's only 11 of them left.
Okay, and that won't sway the what's the motion, 14 something?
14.9. Which is going to be, it'll be less than a 7% increase over last year.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, guys.
Any more discussion?
Can I get your final worksheet, by the way?
We printed it, we sent it. Oh, this. Yeah.
What you end up with, yeah.
You're talking about for the setting the mill rate?
Yeah.
This year. I have further discussion, not to be late with this, but I think the other thing you gotta remember when the surplus is, I don't remember the exact number is, but that's a little bit overstated. Not in error, but in reality, because we put 30,000 in there from the ARP funds, and we really have sort of pegged to go other places, if you recall. So in a sense, that money is, well, not legally encumbered, is sort of spoken for.
I don't think that's in the surplus.
Oh, yeah.
Is
Yeah,
it?
sure. But we did that on purpose. So. And we kind of had kept that in mind, and we wanted to keep track of what we had put in there.
Because I thought it was commitment from an intergovernmental agency. I thought it was a separate.
No, that's why we decided to pay for the paving, which actually increased the surplus because we underspent in the public works, which increased the surplus. So, but I don't want to complicate things, but.
Yeah, well, that's another reason I'm this year, probably for the first time in recorded memory. I do not want to take from the surplus to. Yeah, I see Walter shaking his head. So.
No, not at all. I think what I'm surprised at is I think you're ending up at 12%. So you and I are.
Yeah, we are.
Recorded history and agreement.
All right, any further discussion? Last chance, all those in favor of setting the mill rate at 14.9?
And I do think we got a little bit of a explaining to do. That 14.9 does not mean your tax bill is going to go down from.
Right. And just for the budget committee, I did get in the handout that we gave. I did compare on the front sheet, it shows what it would have been if we didn't have the 15% increase. But that was, I think, based on a 14.7 instead of 14.9, so it's gonna be a little bit higher than that. And the back sheets also show where your taxes go. And so it shows that if you had a $200,000 home last year, how much your taxes would be if you didn't raise the value of your home. And then there's another one that shows 15% increase, and it shows how much those taxes are, and they're the same. So raising your valuation does not change how much taxes you pay, because we're using a lower mill rate. All right. Now that that's over, I've got sheets of paper.
No, it's a complicated night.
Yeah, all right, so let's now go to review of prior meeting minutes. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank
You're just gonna print everything out for them to sign and.
I'm going to. Yes.
So we have July 18th, August 3rd, and August 9th. Packets.
I'm sorry. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of July 18th, August 3rd, and August 9th.
I'll second that.
Hey, any further discussion, additions, subtractions, or edits? All those in favor?
I,
All right, discussion of the demolition costs and plan for the library during the construction. And John asked to have this put on the agenda.
Well, it's in response to Sandy's wife's email regarding noting that this came up at their presentations, those two questions. I did talk briefly to Gabe at the Gilpin Butler, and he felt that that basically, if I heard him correctly, he felt that he doesn't understand why this is sort of a separate issue. And why it isn't just rolled into the mission of the committee. I do think that updating the demolition costs is fairly easy. It's just a matter of calling two companies and asking to update it. Although I would be reluctant to do it now, to put them and make them jump through those hoops, because since we're nowhere near ready. I mean, but obviously they're gonna climb. I think the other question of how to deal with the existing activities and facility in the Gilpin Butler facility is much more complicated question. And I personally feel that the idea of the library going back to the Little Red Schoolhouse, as was one of the options talked about way back when we did the Gilpin Butler Futures report, is really not a practical option, given what's transpired and developed over the last 3 years down there, which is a great thing. I don't know that we're going to answer that question tonight, and my suspicion is it's going to be a combination of things. You know, trying to stage building, and you know, I mean, I know I've worked when we did a major addition in St. George with little kids running around in a K-8 school. As crazy as it might seem, we made it work where the architects and the contractors made it work where, you know, the new section was built and then kids were moved into that new section and it was cordoned off and then you had to move back. Well, was it perfect? No, but it worked. There's also the option of a couple of temporary buildings for a short period of time. So I think the answer to that question is going to be a multifaceted answer. Personally, I don't think it's going to be one answer, and I don't think we're going to do it here tonight. But I would like to, and kind of on the advice of Gabe, is I would like to sort of expand the mission, if you will, of the facilities committee to consider that factor of what we now have down there as we plan for this process. I think we have to do that. And so I think we can maybe kick this around another night, and Sandy had several questions, who's gonna pay for them? I don't think we can answer that yet. I do think that in the Guilford Butler's futures report, we did recommend that the town fund the demolition of the building if it ever came to that. And part of it, I think the reason for that is we thought that was a good place to show that the town had some buy-in, if you will, when it came to contributing to this project. And the plan was, the recommendation was to raise, stop putting money into a reserve account for that purpose. That didn't happen for whatever reason as we move forward. But I think come next budget year, we maybe need to seriously start thinking about that. Along with the revale and so, again, I don't know that we're gonna answer these questions tonight, and I don't know what people's thoughts are. I'd like to hear Sandy's thoughts about kind of expanding the mission of the committee to consider, what's developed down there over the last 2-3 years and to kind of crank that into their thinking. But that's all I got at this point in time to say. So,
is there enough land there that you could build a new facility without demolishing Guilford Butler?
I think that's a possibility. I
mean,
don't feel I'm qualified to answer
so
that.
that you have one in place before you.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a possible solution,
I don't know how much land is there or how.
There's not a ton when you take out the septic system.
Yeah.
And the building and the parking area. And the playground. It's a small lot.
Mhm.
And the skate park. I mean, but I don't know, maybe by that time, who knows what shape the skate park will be moved in, and we can move it out here to where one of these tennis courts is. I guess. It seems to me that would be tight, but but maybe you could, I don't know, but I think it's something we need to start thinking about.
Mhm.
And which is why I think the best place to put it is with that committee. And that's what Gabe had recommended as well too, because he thought that was, pretty typical as he was, I think he was talking to you about it too, briefly, so.
Any comments from your committee? Yes, ma'am.
Walt has the answer too.
Are you calling
Yeah.
on? Okay.
Yes.
I agree, John, that the idea was to have the town do the demolition because of the idea that we were going to be raising money for a new building, not for demolition, and that would be a buy-in from the town. That may have changed at this point, and I do also think that the committee should revisit the whole project because, as you say, there's so much more activity there in the building than we thought. I also just want to remind people that in the Futures Committee, and there's quite a few of us here tonight from the Futures Committee, that when we decided that the library should be able to move into the Guilford Butler School, it was considered, it was going to be years until we could build or do anything. And it was an act of, it was preferable that, not to keep the library back in the Little Red Schoolhouse, that it should be able to go into the Guilford Butler Center or school at that point. And it was considered a temporary thing. So having everybody come to the table with that idea, if you're going to give it to the facility committee, that we all agree that that was considered a temporary solution while a committee was formed and a 501c3 was incorporated towards the idea of a new building. So that we can't lose sight of why we did that, I think, in the Futures Committee. So I'm okay with it coming back to the Facility Committee as a discussion or a point of consideration of what to do. But it was never, that was why we did what we did. And so if you want to consider expanding the mission, I want it not to just be everything in the Facility Committee, but it's a townwide agreement that was the reasons that we made the decisions that we did.
I agree with you. I think those were the reasons. I just think that there's to Penny's and other people's credits, they've been incredibly successful, and that's a new reality that we need to crank into the thinking.
Right, right.
Penny?
I would like also the committee to understand that a closure of any period of time is unacceptable.
Well, I would agree, and that's exactly why I say that we need to crank into thinking what we're gonna do. I mean, I think the worst thing we could do to destroy momentum and support for this is to close that for 18 months or 12 months or 2 years or whatever it is. I agree 100%. That's not to say that maybe we won't have, part of the solution might have to be some curtailment of activities, but certainly not a closure. At least that's how I personally.
I've been in the first meeting that was here, when it was reviewed and discussed, and a number of things were brought up where, sprinkler system, some other things, and they weren't anticipated in that cost, and so it just seems to me like when the town voted on this, didn't we vote on a parameter of like 2.8, for value? Again, if I'm wrong, but it just seems to me that the cost of this thing is probably in the 3.5 plus to 4 million now, with the required improvements such as sprinkler system, life safety, other things going on. I just didn't feel comfortable leaving here, knowing, I just didn't think that we were even close to where the number is on if a new building were to be built, and if the building does come in at 3.5 or $4 million, does it make, I mean, it's a lot of money, trying to understand the process here. Is there a committee? Is there a board? Is there has that all been established already for this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do I find out information of what's going on as a resident?
Well, their agenda.
Yes. I have my hand up.
All right.
Yeah, the agendas are posted, they have public
Minutes.
meetings, they have minutes.
You just had 3 public information meetings and they advertised.
Yeah, they just had a big.
So just come down and ask to review the minutes of the last meeting.
It's not just that. I mean, Terry sends out their meetings on agendas on the listserv all the time. You're on the listserv.
Oh, yeah, no, but I mean, going in the agenda is one thing, but the minutes are certainly another thing. The minutes
Well,
obviously have to meet up.
meetings are recorded too, or most of them are recorded on YouTube.
Find most of them on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I've got minutes.
All the minutes are on the website as well.
Minutes are on the website.
Yeah.
In answer to your direct question, there was no cost in that Article 10.
There was
No cost in that Article 10.
Let the future committee have it.
Yeah,
We had an estimate, but we said going into it that this is gonna happen 5 to 6 years from now and the cost is gonna be greater. Walter, you had a question?
No, I didn't have a question. So last meeting, you received some nominations for the board of the incipient nonprofit. And can you just update us on that, the first meeting of that board, who was made officers? And maybe that will help answer Rich's question a little bit, that, you know, there's an organization or construct in place to move this forward at the, what I'll call the executive level.
Yeah, if John wants to talk about
Yeah,
it, that's
I'd be
not happy to talk about.
I do want to correct you on one thing, we didn't receive nominations, we made nominations to the incorporator. The select board nominated two people, Sandy Wiseman and myself. I seem to have drawn the short straw, so, or the long straw, depending on how you look at it. And the Community and Facilities Committee nominated Barbara, your wife, which I think you know, Irv Curtis and Sherry Daxo. And the incorporator has appointed them as a board of directors. We did hold the first meeting, which was posted in the 5-day requirement. And the committee elected officers. John Sphere was elected president for no more than 1 year. Your wife was elected treasurer, and Barbara, and Sherry Daxo was elected secretary. But I would remind folks that this nonprofit board has a very narrow purpose, and that's fundraising. It's really the Community and Facilities Committee that's planning the building and planning, you know, the overall strategy. And so I think it would be incumbent upon them to, or I think it would be up to us to expand their mission to take into consideration how we're going to deal with this transition during construction, not this board of directors that has a narrow purpose of fundraising.
Yeah,
That makes sense. And the 501c3 status, is that still an open action item by this board of directors?
yes.
Dasco, who is a lawyer and has experience in that area, volunteered to initiate that process and report back to us. We've scheduled our next meeting for September 20th. Although Sandy, I have to talk to you, I may have a conflict, but currently it's September 20th.
So can I make a request? I mean, obviously I hear about this stuff over the pillow. So I have an advantage over the general population. How will you communicate what's going on here, and how regularly, and who owns the communication? Is it the committee, which Sandy chairs, or the board of directors, which you're president of, John? I mean, and you don't have to answer this tonight. I think these are things you need to sort out, because I just heard from Rich, who is a very knowledgeable, connected member of the community, and he was asking questions that that I know the answer to, but I only know it because I'm kind of an insider.
Yeah, I can't speak for the facilities committee. I would remind people, though, that this nonprofit is not part of the town. It's a legal, separate, private nonprofit corporation. And I guess that's something that the board of directors is going to have to discuss as we go down the road here. But it is not part of the town. But the bylaws do say that even though it's not part of this town, it's subject to the main FOA laws. Even though they're not legally subject to them, just the bylaws impose that upon us.
I do have a question. Isn't there a conflict of interest, all right, having a selectman on this, being a chair of the nonprofit? I two separate entities, but connected somehow, connected by the town. Isn't there?
No, and as a matter of fact, it was part of the bylaws, of the original draft of the bylaws, to have the select board represented on the board, because we wanted to keep that link alive.
But to have the.
We didn't want to run away.
No,
like
I
we had with the fire
understand,
department.
but to have the select board be chair of the committee as opposed to being part of the committee. I think that's.
He's not chair of the committee, he's
It's a
president of
different-
an
To
LLC.
me, it just doesn't feel comfortable.
Well, I would take exception to conflict of interest, because that is a very.
No,
No, that implies that I have a pecuniary interest, and believe me, I don't, so. So,
all right, no, I just,
I mean, you could say bias if you want, but.
But we do have vacancies on the board and we are looking for volunteers.
And then you'll be.
The main reason Walter's in the know is because he's been at every single select board meeting and probably every other meeting, not just because of his wife. Because he attends them and he reads the paperwork and he's on the budget committee and he reads stuff. So, yes, ma'am.
I felt like Richard's question was more about the committee's information, not the board, the 501 board. That's two separate issues. And that the committee information really isn't very complete at this time. We were told something that the different public informational meetings that were in conflict, and such as we were under the amount of space we needed to have life safety. But then John asked, could it be expanded in the future, and was told yes, but doesn't that put us over that edge of needing a sprinkler system? And they said that we wouldn't have a kitchen that was commercial and needing the fire suppression equipment, and these are things that exist now in the current facility. And so these things aren't even finite decisions out there in the design plan. There is no design other than a very preliminary thing that they kind of worked up. And I'm worried that, if we're looking at something that we're going to expand in the future, shouldn't that be in consideration now? Looking at a longer project than just a community center library. And I don't think it also didn't consider being the emergency warming shelter, which was part of this.
Yeah, but again, all they're doing right now is what the town voted for them to do. If we're gonna make changes to that, we're gonna have to go back to the town. So
Well, it was amended to say unless there were, significant changes, and I feel there have been very serious changes to where we were 5 years ago when this whole thing started. And that from the 1.5 million that was predicted in the futures report to the 4 million now, what's going to happen to the library during construction. I think a lot has changed.
well, I will remind you that you said you would have no problem at all moving back to the Woodward School.
And that was 5 years ago.
So. Okay, I think we've beat this dead horse.
Yeah, I'd just like to respond to Penny. I mean, I don't think we can answer those questions. I think those are questions that need to be addressed to the community facilities committee or his concerns, but. And I don't see that using a new facility as a warming shelter is necessarily outside the parameters of that,
Right.
but again. And I don't know, okay.
Okay, update on possible land purchase, John, you have something more?
I have two things. to tell you. I have a motion that Jim Strong. And I talked about that I dealing with the Klein property that. I'm just gonna read if you don't mind. It says, I move that pursuant to the authority granted to the select board by Article 6 as passed at the 2023 South Thompson Annual Town Meeting. That the select board in the name of the town purchase 2 parcels of land from Ralph E. Klein III for the sum of $17,000. If you remember, this is not part of the motion, but if you remember, the article authorized us to do it. It didn't say we had to do it. Said parcels of land consisting of 11 acres more or less identified on the town's tax map as map 08 lot 02, map 08 lot 03. And more particularly described in a deed from the estate of Ralph E. Klein Jr. to Ralph E. Klein III dated January 31, 2020, found at book 552, page 198. I further move to authorize the town treasurer to issue a check in the amount of $17,000 to the James Strong Trust account upon delivery of a deed from Klein for said parcels that is satisfactory to attorney James Strong. And that's a motion. And I can speak to it after.
I'll second that.
Okay. Basically, the title opinion from Jim has gone to the Klein's attorney who's on vacation this week. Nothing ever moves smoothly here. And this Jim feels will give the treasurer and him the authority to basically execute a closing whenever they're ready to go. So it's pretty straightforward. I know we have a purchase and sale agreement in place here. And I guess that's it.
All right,
Unless someone is not ready to go, so.
any further?
This is just a climb.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
And then
Did you want, okay.
at the Smith property, there's, I finally did hear back from Jeff. He would like to close 3 or 4 days between, at least 3 or 4 days before September 10th. I've communicated that to Attorney Strong. I sent the conditions that were drafted, I drafted as proposed conditions that I drafted that I passed by Sonia and Catherine and you folks that impose upon the town what I understand that Mr. Smith wants. Those have been sent to Attorney Brandon. James says Attorney Strong has called him twice, hasn't heard back from him yet. So he's pursuing that, see if those are okay. And his intent at this point is to get them both in the purchase and sale agreement and of course the deed, which is where they really important. And I know Sandra and a few other people with Conservation Commission are looking to sort of delay this a little bit while they pursue some hoops they're trying to jump through with land for any futures grant. So nothing, there's no action to be taken tonight. It's still kind of open. But I did have one question for Sandra, if I could. I know you said you needed a brief amount of time, but do you anticipate that brief amount of time will be less than?
Before September 4th.
Yeah.
We do. The only thing not in our control, we'll be writing up. There's this inquiry form, which, sorry. Ordinarily, if things were proceeding in an orderly fashion, which they've kind of been, Jeff Smith, by demanding an early closing, kind of put a spanner in it. We were thinking we could, in an organized way, jump through all the hoops to apply for the grant. Which include being able to say what your budget is and being able to provide a survey and yada, yada, yada. We understand that we can do an abbreviated form of that. We can say, here's how much we know, here's how much, we'll be working on. They understand the, we've spoken with the folks at the Land Remains Future and at the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, which would be the sponsoring agency. They understand the urgency because Jeff Smith is insisting on early closing. Their requirement is that before land is purchased, and they're not even happy with this, but they will accept applications for land already purchased. But before that happens, there has to have been a preliminary process where they were informed of the plan and said, agree that they support it. That's the part. We can present it. We can say, here's our time pressure. And
You're at their mercy.
right, but they've expressed willingness to work with us and understanding of our problem.
Give a timeline.
For what?
How long?
I
do
think
we have to
the
jump
pretty-
through?
Hold on. Yeah, the timeline is, she doesn't know that right now. Yes,
That's what I'm saying. They want an abbreviated preliminary form just to be aware of what we are doing. And then from the information we supply, which will include the maps, so that they can see, the scope of the project and that indeed it's worthy. They may decide or not that they want to do a site visit. And I anticipate that she will say, no, you can, we've seen that, we're happy, you can continue with your proposal, but at this point we'll be in the process without deviation from the regulations or whatever.
but you're not waiting until the 15th of September to start that process.
No, we are moving with this.
All right.
We are working on the form.
And the way I look at it,
By the select board
Yeah.
before it goes anywhere.
the way I look at it, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but at least we tried.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And we can say with a straight face to the townspeople, we tried.
I mean, the people at LMF, so in Augusta, were very appreciative of our call. And she already was looking at the map situation to look at the plot, so they were encouraging. And they keep mentioning, obviously, there is no guarantee that we will be selected. There is the added fact that they have not decided on when the next cycle will start. So I was under the impression that it would start in January like it did last year. That's not a given at all. They may push it 6 months, but she guaranteed that the process would be started well within the 2 years of our purchases. So that's not looking us out.
So that, right, the look back will only go 2 years.
Correct.
And she said she can't guarantee, but she would be shocked if that was a problem.
And then the final thing is, I did speak to Doug Beck. I kind of told him very briefly about our meeting and our conversation and our plan. He was fine with that. I did mention your issue that you brought up. He said that he thought he was speaking to something else, but he said there was a lot of stuff bouncing around, so he can see where someone might have seen it the way you saw it. But
I'm sorry, which is your point.
But anyways, it's a moot point now because
Yeah.
we're not moving there. So, but I just wanted to let you know that I did talk to him and he finally got back to me, and we're closing out the grant today, and hopefully we can apply for the one next year. So that's it. Good.
Thank you. Okay, draft audit for last year. Are we ready to talk about that or not? Here, are we ready to talk about the audit?
Yeah, if you wanna, I mean, I think it'd be easier if you ask questions and I try to answer them, or if I don't have the answer, to give them to Mindy.
Okay.
Or would it be easier to email me questions and that way, or however anyone wants to do it?
Well, I can tell you, that I sat down with Terry again, I had several questions. And Terry emailed them to Mindy, and Mindy responded. And did you copy them on those, or? I don't recall.
I printed them out, they get in their packets.
And of course, I can't find my responses from Mindy, but That's got too many papers.
Yeah, definitely,
Huh?
definitely too many pages.
It wasn't in my packet, it was in my. Yeah. Here. it is. Okay. Want me to run through the questions I had? Or-
Yes.
Yeah, I don't want to bore people. Basically, I'll just do this real quick. Some of these aren't very important, but I noticed that in our governmental wide financial analysis, our total assets increased dramatically, or fairly dramatically, from 3.4 million to 3.7. I just was curious what the driver of that was, and it was sort of with a couple of things, but it was mainly the Island Road project. And which I suspected it might be. I had a couple of questions on what was included in the accounts payable and which other funds on page 13 of it, and I don't know. I think you actually explained to me that, Terry. I don't think that ended up being the questions you sent to her, was it?
So I have.
There's a slight problem with how she accounted for the grant for the basketball court. She booked the entire amount of the grant, 17,090 as an account receivable, where we're only gonna get 50% of what our total expenditures were for that would happen out there. So that's gonna be more like 12,000. So that's actually gonna lower our surplus by about 5,000. We had a question about well, maybe it's just better for you to read these. One was why the accounts receivable was almost double. And again, part of that was that error in the grant, but ambulance receivables were up. But it really didn't account for why it doubled. But my main questions were what were in different things, and once she sent these little sheets that are attached, I understood what was in them. So it made things clearer for me. So with the changes she was proposing to make, I personally am all set. But were a couple minor things. She had the ambulance trust fund and all the Randall Hopkins funds still listed on page 17 as non-expendable trust, and of course they are expendable. She's gonna make that change. That was fairly minor. We had agreed to relabel the ambulance. It used to be called the defibrillator. Mike Florence always used to help with that account, and we had agreed a couple of years ago to change it to ambulance equipment, and that didn't somehow get changed, but she's going to change that. That's a labeling issue. We checked over all the assigned fund balances. Those were, I think, fine. there was quite a bit of confusion around the tennis basketball court grant. Because that was funded with some in-kind and grant money and, but I think we got that straightened out today, don't you, Terry?
I think so.
I sat down with Terry. We're gonna get that back to her, and I understand why she was confused on that, the accounting. I had some questions on what were on page 37, why the original amounts and the final budget amounts were different. He answered those. And that's about it.
So. We ready for her to go final?
Well, I think we need to get her the stuff we worked on today, right?
Yeah,
And we kind of wanted to get that into Doug Beck to make sure that he was okay with that, so we didn't have to change it again. If he, for example, we included in there as an in-kind contribution, the amount we paid for a bid ad to the courier. And I think I remember him saying at some point you can't charge administrative costs there, so I don't know, he may kick that out, for example, but that's a fairly minor adjustment. So I think we wanted to get that to Doug and see if he had any issues, so. But there was kind of a screw up around the grant out back there, but I blame us, not her, for that. And I took your question, I kind of looked at everything on the surplus and kind of added up to me, I mean, I don't. So. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I've got, I still have 115,000 in my can't account. But we don't.
Working.
Yeah. But we don't need to approve the audit, right? We just
No,
tell
we
them
need to
we're
approve
second.
that engagement letter though, or have we already done? I think we already did that.
I think we did that.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, but she likes our comments and feedback and.
She doesn't like to do the final printout, send it to you and say,
Yeah, and all bound and everything, and then we say, hey, what about this? And then she's gonna read. So. I think our surplus, unrestricted fund balance in the general fund is at least overstated by the 5,000 in the accounts receivable, when she booked that full amount of the grant. So. Okay, that's all I have.
And we've already done the tax. Okay, we have a request from the West. Oh, I wish I'd known this was on there. I didn't even see it. I would have brought it up sooner. Request from the West Historical Society for funds from the Randall Hopkins Trust Fund. And they're requesting 12.4 from the fund to put shingle the roof.
I actually had a couple of questions that I emailed to Carol and she emailed to contract and I didn't hear back from her, but in fairness, I just did it today. Now, basically they were, it says, remove one layer of existing shingles except the barn, and the roof is quote, and I don't know what he means by the barn. And then in the diagram, it doesn't reference what area is going to do, but if you look at that diagram, which is not attached here, it looks as though he's going to do the historical building plus the kitchen area.
That L portion.
Right, and I understand the way that's hooked up, you're gonna have to get in that a little bit, but it looks like he's gonna do the whole thing. But the contract doesn't reference that diagram at all. So I'm not clear in my own mind what he's definitely doing and isn't doing. I think I know, but that's the problem, I think. And if he is gonna be doing part of the town's roof there, then we should be named as an additional insured as well, particularly when it comes to roofing. I mean, that's inherently a rather dangerous.
But I think the details of the contract is. What we're voting on is to approve.
Well, yeah, I know,
funds-
but
funds for the
I understand that, but I have a problem voting to release the funds if I'm not sure exactly what they're being used for. And if the town's not protected. I would be willing to approve it based on the condition that those two issues be resolved. I'm actually more concerned about the insurance.
Right.
Than anything.
Yeah, and as I understand it, I think one of the email trails I saw today said they had asked about include those.
Yeah. Yeah, and well, a lot of that, she included the certificate of insurance, but I don't know about you, but yeah, I couldn't begin to read it. So she was gonna get a clearer one. So I'll make a motion, we approve the, well, I have a question first before I do that, and because I haven't done this before, I don't think, but do we transfer the funds before they undertake the activities?
I don't know how the county.
Or is it a
or do they,
Reimbursement or?
Last time we
you just.
reimbursed them, I think, because they'd already paid everything and gave us,
Yeah. Because I know there's a deposit required,
yeah.
so,
I mean, we can certainly pay it, the deposit, and then when they get a final bill, pay the final bill.
well, we don't pay it though, we transfer it to them and they pay it.
Right,
Yeah,
but we can do it in 2 checks. We don't have to do it all at once.
I don't know, I don't know the answer to it, I don't know what the practice has been. I know there was some discussion several years ago where we weren't. When Walter was on the board then, I don't know if he's still here, where they wanted the money transferred to them, but I think that was all the money. And they came to this agreement where they would request for it project to project, but that doesn't answer my question of, do we give them the money before the project's done? I don't necessarily have a problem with that, I just was curious as to what the process has been.
Just so you know, when that came up, just so you have the history here. Kristen said that in order to transfer the funds entirely to the Historical Society, they had to go before a probate judge and have the select board removed as the trustees. And she also suggested that that would be a fruitless attempt. And that I think her exact words were, no probate judge was going to grant that. And that's why we entered into the handshake agreement that they were entitled to the funds. And the trustees had to disperse the funds or have a darn good reason to not. So I'm sorry to take up your airtime, but I just wanted to make sure you guys knew that history.
Thank you.
That doesn't really address my question.
Has nothing to do with tonight.
Right. Yeah.
I think they may need the money to pay the deposit to reserve the slot in the schedule of the contractor. So maybe you can, I don't know, make a motion to approve payment of the deposit.
I'm willing to make a motion to approve the entire amount. I just don't know when I'm just questioning when Terry is supposed to disperse it. And clearly the deposit, I have no problem with at all. I get that. But I don't know if the disbursement for the balance is supposed to happen before the project is before they present us with a bill.
Well, it could be an authorization of spending up to that amount, and then the disbursement is done upon presentation of invoices.
I was just curious if somebody knew past practice, but evidently no one does, so. So I'll make a motion, we spend the 12,400 and Terry and the treasurer's authorized to forward the deposit amount and to forward the balances upon presentation of bills.
And pending insurance.
Pending the resolution of what's gonna be shingled, and if the town roof is being shingled, that we're named as an additional insurance, sorry. Life gets complicated.
I will
Okay,
second that.
Okay,
I think I'll have to go back and listen to that one.
have the hand to do it.
All right, any further discussion?
Thank you, Chuck.
All those in favor?
Aye,
Sorry, I'm just cautious with my nature.
that's a good thing.
Another one I wish I realized at the beginning. Consider approving catering application for Morgan Hill Event Center,
Yes, and he just left.
and he just left.
Oh, was he on the Zoom?
He was.
Is it a new?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a new person we haven't done.
when's the event? August 31st. You asked him to attend tonight?
I think he's been on the whole time.
Yeah. I saw the name Ryan, I thought it was Ryan Colson. Couldn't really see the picture because it was kind of in the shadows and really didn't register that it was him.
August 31st. Yeah.
That is phone number for him. Come back on.
Well,
Does it say how many people we're talking about here?
100 plus or minus, it says.
and is it outdoor?
And it's all inside. It says.
It said the alcohol would be inside the building. Drinks just stay inside the barn or a barn.
You talked to him at all, Terry?
No, just. I haven't talked to him, I've only emailed him.
Well, I was thinking about calling.
Yeah, I wonder what it's about. Other than being bored.
Yeah. And waiting.
There.
Do I use my phone?
Yeah. You can't, I don't think you'll get it.
Okay. Oh, you probably don't have,
No,
internet, you have to go outside this room, I don't.
only SOS.
Open by the window.
Right.
Maybe, yeah. Sometimes I gotta step outside, sometimes I get it in the window.
Yeah, if you stand right here, you have maybe one car.
Want me to try it?
Yeah, give it a try. Maybe text.
Was it?
Right.
Yeah, boy, it doesn't look good.
Glock 914.
Yeah. Hello? Hello? Hi, this is Ryan. This is John Pierce from the County Selectboard. We were just gonna take up your application and we didn't realize that it was you that was on. We thought it was Ryan that worked here. We didn't know that, so, can you join us? Now, the problem is the phone reception doesn't work inside the building. I'm outside. So, well, I can't speak for the board, so. You can join us, I don't know what, will, I'm not sure what to tell you. Yeah, the trouble is, we probably won't meet again before the third, or we might not meet again before the 31st. Well, the first step, our policy here is when someone does this for the first time, they have to, attend the board meeting and get to know them and ask questions. Yeah, well, we didn't know that, we didn't realize. Right. Yeah. Okay. We have, thanks, bye. I don't know if you're.
Yep.
Well, I feel bad for him, but I also feel like he could have spoken. I move we table the application.
I'll second that.
Boiler bids for municipal building. This in addition to the bids we had before. The bid we had before.
These, these are the bids we had before. Jerry was just kind of asking where we're going with it. So John and I had talked about it a while ago, and we were gonna put it on the agenda, but it didn't ever get on the agenda.
So how many bids do we have?
Two.
And I don't, do we have Jerry's?
Yes, it's in the papers I gave you today.
Oh, right.
That's what I was waiting. Oh, wait a minute. We have two quotes. Okay, Jerry's is 46,000.
Where-
It's not it's in this. The agenda, no,
It's in the, it's in the background notes, but a more detailed one is in the paperwork I gave you today.
Which I have no.
One we just got. when we got here.
Is that in with the,
It was with all the
with
letters.
all the letters?
Yeah,
Oh,
no, that's,
Gerald Hodge. So Jerry is, about $1,000 higher. But he's talking 3 boilers.
yeah, my question was, why is one boiler and one is 3? Is it just 3 small ones or?
Well, Jerry explained at budget time why he wanted 3, and he wanted redundancy, where if one went down, the 2 could heat the building. And I know when I was at San 50, we did that in all our school buildings, we had 2 in there.
Okay,
And one would not heat the building great, but it would hopefully keep it from freezing out.
Yeah.
So it was, so, but, my inclination is to go with Jerry. Did we solicit these? I don't recall soliciting bids.
I thought we did.
we always had, we've always been talking with Jerry about, we need to do something about our boiler.
Yeah.
This budget season, he asked if I.
I
wanted
said
another-
Jerry's, but did we solicit other bids and only got one, or?
We didn't do an official solicitation. When I was talking to Maritime about the generator, I asked him about
Okay,
a boiler here.
well, I'll be perfectly blunt. My inclination, given the price difference, is to go with Jerry, because I think he gives us great service. He's here all the time. I think he's got the interest of town. deeply in his heart. Is that a correct way to look at it? I like the idea of having the redundancy. The only one thing that bothers me is I think I heard him say something about that they might have to move the wall between the kitchen wall to make it fit. And is that cost cranked into this? And if it isn't, how much is it? So I'll make a motion, we accept Jerry's bid on the condition that we find more information out about the installation, room for the installation.
I'll second that.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't say how big is, what the BTU is.
Oh, I thought it did.
I don't see it.
It says 3 basement BTHE 199 200 watt propane fire boilers. 45 AC BC 48.
Well, I'll amend my motion to and upon clarification of the BTU capacity.
Yeah, because I mean, the other one's from 500 BTU.
Right. But the other one's only for heat only.
Yeah.
I thought Jerry's was for hot water. Yeah, it does.
Yes,
It said it would
does, yeah.
continue to serve these as well as the new boilers.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute.
Estimate includes, but is not limited to.
What's that?
It says the estimate includes the below, but is not limited to the following.
Well, I guess I'd like to withdraw my motion if you would just wait.
Yeah.
No, I'd like to make another motion.
Okay.
I'd like to authorize Terry to negotiate with Jerry.
I'll second that.
So we're.
And be authorized to award a bid up to 40,
Up to 46.
whatever, what do we budget?
46.
$46,000.
That include moving the wall.
That's what we'll find out. That's why I'm authorizing.
And if it's more than 46, then
We gotta
they have to come back.
revisit it, yeah.
All right, all
Then
those.
you're gonna have to come back the wall.
I mean, the other option is we could put together a bid package, hire someone to do that. You're gonna spend 3 or 4 grand, put it out for a bid.
Yes.
Monthly reports. Anybody got anything on those? Thank you again for your details, CEO.
Yes, CEO, your reports are marvelous.
Very good.
I have a question. Did David's report, I had heard through the grapevine, David, he always does the truck, does waiting replacement, and I kind of heard through the grapevine that the fire truck has been delayed. But I didn't see anything in here about that, maybe. I don't know if anyone else did. I read it very quickly. I don't see it. Terry, have you heard from Ed Alley at all?
No, I'll call him
You
again.
bug him?
I'll love him again.
And would you mind calling David or? And seeing this status, if there's any truth to the fire truck's been delayed?
Yep.
And if so, what the details are? Or ask him to let us know or?
Okay, donations. It's like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 donations.
I move we accept ambulance donations to the ambulance in memory of Barney Elliott. $30 from Alan Post, $50 from John and Mary Bird, and $25 from Madeline and Larry Grissom.
I second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I move we accept the donation from Locke and Edward Bloom. When he says garden donation, I assume he means
Beautification.
beautification, not the community garden at the library.
Here's your, Ryan is here.
Oh.
Oh,
You second that?
Ryan, oh, I'm sorry, I said staff.
All those in favor?
Keep that going.
I move we accept the donation of $500 to the Guilford Butler Center. From Betsy Lund. I assume this is what we call the library account.
Yeah.
Second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I think I see somebody popping in. See if I can find it. Are you with us, Ryan? Yeah, unmute your mic.
You're muted.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, and just so you know, the first time we have an application from a new provider, we require that to be done by the select board. After the first time, if there's no issues or problems or complaints, then our administrator can handle them. But the first time they come in, we like to talk especially about that venue. On here, you said number of persons attending would be plus or minus 100.
That's what I'm told. Yes,
And you're going to be doing it all inside?
that's what I've been told. Yes. It looks like it's going to be more like 60 people now.
So who will you be the one that enforces that it's all inside?
I will be there in person. Yes.
Well, my question is, are you the one that will be enforcing that it's all kept inside?
I will be. Yes.
Okay. Have you, how long have you been in the catering business?
I've had a liquor license and I'm not a caterer. I own my own venue in Bangor, Maine area, and I've been doing it for 15 years. So I've done about 130, I think this would be my 137th offsite bar I've done.
Okay, so you got a lot of experience.
Many. I've done over 1,000 events just at my venue alone.
And your company is located in Herman?
Herman, Maine, yes.
Yeah.
Have you seen this venue?
I have not. Nope, never been to Thomaston or South Thomaston. Never been there, but I've spoken with the client and I've spoken with the person who's hiring me and kind of got the lay of the land of everything there.
Okay, so you're not being hired by the venue then?
I am not. No.
Okay.
The clients that are renting the venue is hiring a caterer who's doing the food, and the caterer who's doing the food is hiring me, and the caterer who's doing the food is my own caterer from my event center.
Okay.
Yeah. He hires me anytime they want a bar off site. He hires me to do all of the alcohol off site. So that therefore I know all of the caterer members and all that. So we all know each other. Is there issues with this venue that I'm not aware of?
Well, probably
Just so I'm prepared.
Well, we're in a public meeting here.
Okay, fair enough. Point
So I'll
noted.
make a motion to approve the application.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks for coming back.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so
Sorry
much.
about the mix-up. Sorry
No
about the-
problem. Thank you so
We
much.
thought you
Take
were
care.
someone else.
All right, thank you.
I realized that I would have moved you up earlier in the.
Oh, no, that's fine. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is actually kind of similar
Yeah.
to the other Ryan.
Correspondence, anybody have anything?
I don't want to take any action on this personally. I know they're asking us to issue a press release, but I hate to take up the courier's time on a story like this. But while we're under correspondence, I would ask that we ask Terry to draft just a quick thank you note to Alan Bedanza for cleaning up the bait that was full of maggots that was dumped on the wharf down there. I mean, I went down there and I couldn't get within 2 or 3 feet of it.
You mean Barry?
Barry? Yeah.
Yeah,
Barry.
What I said?
Alan.
Oh, Alan's dead.
I know.
I see his
I
there's a
know.
plaque with him on the 8th rock
I know.
every day. I see it every day, so. Cause he did that for nothing, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And.
Yeah.
It was, I'm sure it wasn't a very pleasant job, so.
I'm looking for the MMA.
Yeah, if no one objects to that, I assume,
What the,
sending a note to him, asking Terry to send a note to him, thank you.
oh, no,
On our behalf.
So rather than send this press release out, I just thought we should make note of the fact that. Because the front office's good work and our department heads in risk management. We've been given a dividend this year of $2,004 from MMA, which covers our workers' comp insurance.
nice.
And the other, we've gotten 2 letters from Audrey Mackey, which was the recipient.
One of them.
One of the recipients of what?
Of the
Ratcliffe Memorial and
Radcliffe Hopkins.
Oh, the scholarship.
Scholarship.
Yeah, I read those, yeah.
Yeah, very nice letters.
Yeah, and how many people got,
I think 3
yeah,
on each one.
and we got 1 letter?
No matter how much you tell them, they should do it as soon as they get it.
the Lions got 4 out of 4. No, 5 out of 5. Gave 5 scholarships and got 5 letters of appreciation.
Some of them will wait until they ask for the money. I'll instruct them to do it twice. When you get told you're gonna get the money, and then when you're asking to have the money dispersed. So,
All right, anything else come before the board? Anything we omitted, forgot, skipped over? 2 hours.
I'm on me.
I know. And without objection.
Are we gonna schedule?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get a schedule.
Yeah, you're right, we do. That's why I said.
Well, I was still typing. I couldn't catch up with my thoughts.
she couldn't hear all the class. What people.
I could hear it. It's been processed.
Yeah, so the 12th of September would be the next normal one.
We may need one in between that
Oh, for
for land stuff,
Yeah.
and we may not, but. So I'm not ready to propose a date, but I just want to let people know we may need to.
do you think we can get by with one in September, or you want to go ahead and schedule a second?
All right. Oh, actually, if we close with Jeff before then, we're definitely gonna need, I'm sure Jim's gonna want a similar motion that you pass tonight for the climb. But we're not ready for that yet, particularly since that has conditions.
And that you can probably schedule that somewhere in the last
Late,
week.
yeah, later on.
Late August.
But if he wants to close by the 4th. Do you need to meet before then?
That's what I just said. We probably have to have a special meeting
Yeah.
too.
But I was just pointing to the date. It's gotta be before the 4th.
Yeah. I can do the 12th and the 26th.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. You want to pencil in a date? Special meeting.
Now, I don't know when,
Cause I can't do the 29th or the 30th, but I can do the 31st.
I can do the 31st. And that'll give me something to push them for, on Joe.
That is for,
I can't do the 31st, but Hannah probably could come.
Yeah, and it should be simple.
Yeah.
It should be,
That's
I think it's gonna be just basically adopting the same motion that you adopted tonight.
Yeah.
With change of number and blah, 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 so.
So that'll be a special town meeting.
No, it's not a town meeting.
I mean, special select.
No.
and what time would that be?
I knew what you meant, Jeff.
I know.
Henry's dyslexic, I'm always.
Would that be at
spoken
6
about
o'clock?
I can do anytime. John, what's a good time?
Four's good for me.
4 is good for me.
And Hannah's still here, right?
Yep.
Sounds good.
16.
Because I know you work, so.
Ready.
And what do we do for September? I'm sorry,
12th and 26th.
at 6.
Yes.
So which one are you putting at 4 o'clock?
31st.
Okay.
And as always, we'll end up doing 3 things.
Kate.
Don't confuse Hannah, you'll
That's
scare her off.
creep.
I know. Before we close, I just wanted to say, I really don't want to do the commitment the way we did. Sure.
I agree.
And I wanted to have us the new value and the homestead and all that stuff, so we got like a week to play with that, and. I mean, I just happened to catch. That, because I was retyping the numbers on the, from my dumb little form to that form.
Yeah,
And they weren't the same.
yeah, but see, I gave him the sheet, I should have looked at it too, I just assumed and never should assume, I just assumed he'd take the numbers from the
Yeah,
bottom.
and I mean, that's what our appropriation, that's $67,000 error.
Yep.
Not to mention
Do we have things to sign? Anything to sign tonight?
Oh, you got a whole folder to sign.
Not to mention the what, the 9,000,
Right,
the 6,000 was the pre-go and the, yeah.
yep.
Right out there.
This first one, there's 4 places to sign in this.
Okay.
And then there's all this one goes with that because I gotta send it to the county, and then this is just your regular stuff, but we're gonna make Billy sign that so I can give it to him.
We did, but we haven't signed.
Were you gonna adjourn, or are you gonna adjourn after you sign?
Huh?
Are you gonna adjourn before you sign everything or after?
Yeah, we'll adjourn.
Okay.
Without objection, we are adjourned.
There's 4 places, so it's one right here.
Nice on.
No,
Night.
I think that guy Ryan was a little upset.
He didn't act upset. He was on.
No, he didn't. I think he would have been upset if he'd learned we tabled.